Dun, dun, dun. Movie by Sam. Hello! Today, I'm Sam. I was Sam yesterday too. And this is Ted. Ted Talks. He tells me stories. It's where I learn things. Ted Talks. I'm going to talk today about how galaxies are formed. See, galaxies are formed by gas clouds, helium and hydrogen are flowing around in this kind of gaseous ball. And they kind of attract each other and they get bigger and heavier and crash and boom, and they throw out heavier metals, and the heavier metals crash and boom and become planets. And the planets, they start gathering into a solar system. So when we start with helium and hydrogen, next thing you know, you got a baby galaxy. Isn't that amazing? Of course, they also don't happen that way all the time, because a galaxy, well, ours is the Milky Way, and it eats galaxies. But a galaxy and another galaxy, they get together like having sex. And whoa! And out spits a baby galaxy fully formed. It didn't have to start from like a sperm and an egg, helium and hydrogen, because it was already fully formed. Like the movie, I forget. Anyway, this is Ted. He talks to me. I'm Sam from Good Junk, and if I get lost, return me like the tag says. Bye. Good morning. I'm Good Junk Sam, and I decided to play it straight today because I've got a story to unburden. I tried to write this story on paper so I would understand it better, but I felt maybe if I just told it to the camera and told it to you. I've got Hep C from a long time ago, and diabetes and liver cancer, so I'm dying. I need to unburden. And I'm also getting touches of dementia, or I don't know what other, but I do strange things and forgetful. And so before I do, I want to get this on paper. And I call this series 12 Murders. Well, because that's what it is, and it started about 30 years ago. Oh, there was this guy, he was a friend, him and his wife, and I sold him a company that I hated, even though it made me good money. And he paid me some money down and was going to pay me payments, and he did for years. And then he quit paying, and he was arrested for buying stolen property and convicted, although he only got probation, is the word. Well, after that, one day he walked into my store, and Dueno is this happy, arrogant, testosterone-driven, small male who's been successful with this attitude, and he's an absolute wife hater. I mean, women are made to, cook, fuck, and be barefoot. But he walked into my store with this attitude, and I have this tool, I don't have it with me and I should, called a clicking hatchet. And it's really great. It's about 100 years old, and it's used for cutting leather all day long, and it fits in the hand perfectly. It's heavy on one side, it's cast iron, and it's only about this long and a little blade like this, but the blade can be very, very sharp. Imagine a tool that works in your hand all day long for cutting leather, and
one side, if I hit somebody, it'd split their head right open. The other side would, I don't know what it's called, a thumper, and it'd put him out. And no one was in my store, and it was winter, so it's cold in my store. It's about 45, 50 degrees all winter long, kind of like a refrigerator. Well, when Duano came in, I got him in the back, and hi, blah, 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 and I thumped him. Put him right down like a sack of potatoes. And then I hung him up in my back room, which is kind of like a root cellar, but not really, because you can walk right into it. And I was pissed because, you know, when he quit paying me, I lost about $75,000 plus interest. And it was part of the collapse at that time, 30 years ago, of my little empire, and I went broke, and, you know, I made money again, no problem, but I was pissed. And so I hung him up by his feet, thinking he'd pissed and shit all over himself, and that would be really nice, and he could understand how it felt that he pissed and shit all over me. And he'd die of dehydration, and there's duct tape over his mouth, and, you know, of course his hands and feet are bound. And I realized quite quickly that that just can't work, because once he started shitting, he stunk, and it stunk badly. So now I was confronted with a new problem, in that I had to take his clothes off, and I really didn't like being around a naked Duano hanging from the rafters. And I changed how I hung him from his feet to his hands, except his hands were behind his back. And I know that sounds gruesome, because you can just imagine if your hands are behind your back, like being handcuffed, and then you're hung from that. The only thing that can happen is your joint right here will break. And that happened slowly on Duano, because it was really a concept of trying to get it to just sort of, you know, ease out of place. And for the first day that worked pretty good, and he wasn't real happy. And so now we're in day 2, and he's still doing well, and he's still pissing and moaning and groaning. He hasn't quite given up. The guy's pretty strong in that way. And so I've got this naked guy, and now his arms are dislocated at the shoulder blade as he's hung upside down with his arms backwards. And I took this clicking hatchet to him, and he was awake. And if you imagine at your rib cage, if you can think right there, I took this blade and I slit that area between the rib cages, front and back, like slicing gills. Now, I didn't want to slice too deep, because blood's always a concern, and you have to think long term on how, if police come in here, what are they going to see? And to step back, I also had and realized I needed to put plastic tarp under him, because he could, although he didn't shit very far, and he could urinate quite a ways, and until I figured out a way to stop that, which is duct tape him down a little bit, so he peed more into a bucket area, and there was the plastic sheeting, the tarp. So I had him contained, and I had him duct taped, and he was cut up a little bit, and he was dehydrating. And into day 3, you know, I thought this was not very fun, and I was feeling queasy a little bit about this naked man hanging in my rear room in about 45-degree weather. He was looking a little peaked. I wasn't feeding him or giving him water, and I was ready for him to die. And I thought of things like, you know, in case he did get away, if you cut the bottoms of the feet, there's no way he could run. And I thought, oh, that's disgusting. And so maybe morality was catching up with me, or I thought on the heel, I don't know if that tendon that runs in the back of the heel, and that's just sick, because that really hurts. So what I just did is I just left him there, and in about 5 days he died. And as it was still quite cold, 45, 50 degrees, I just left him there, and little by little, he kind of continued to dehydrate. He didn't smell or putrefy. He didn't gas up, so to speak. Well, I did have to puncture his stomach and his intestines a little bit to get it to breathe. And that really didn't stink so much because he didn't have much left in him to gas. And I was ready for this to be over. And you know, you make decisions in life and you aren't always happy with them, but you have to continue to go with it because it's too late to go back. I can't say, gee, I'm sorry, Duano, if you could just, you know, cut me a check for $75 plus interest, I'll cut you loose and we'll act like this never happened. So now I have this dead guy, and he's only about 150 pounds by now. He's dropped a lot of weight. And after a week, I look at him, and I've got the tarp there, and it's cleaned up, and it doesn't smell like a defecating human. And I thought, well, what would happen? Let's just cut him up so we could, you know, dispose of him. And I did that. You know, I've got machetes were good. You know, the clicking hatchet was a little slow because you're just kind of hacking away at things. And I guess I had the wrong music on, you know. It should have been real hardcore rock and roll, but it wasn't. It was just what was playing on the radio, and I guess I didn't get into it. I didn't feel great love in the project of killing and dismembering Duano. But I did it, and I wrapped it up all nice and plasticky, you know, shrink wrap, and you know, put him in kind of sort of burlap, or it's more like, I don't know what you call them, painter's cloth. So nice little packages, you know, a piece of a leg here and a piece of a leg there, and the torso was the biggest part, and heads and arms, and they can all be nicely wrapped. The community I live in is real heavy in recycling. So I took these body parts. I thought, oh, we'll just throw them into the recycling bins, and you know, because they go to the county, and the county sells them to somebody in Phoenix, and it goes into recycling, and they blow it into, you know, insulation. So he'd get noticed, and they'd probably figure the community it came from. But tying it back to me, I tried to be very, very special about it. So anyway, he's wrapped up, and I took him throughout all the town, and I dumped these little things like I'm dumping cardboard and newspaper into the recycling dumpster. And I went home, and it was like nothing ever happened. And there was a little noise when they did find body parts when they're going through the recycling, getting it ready to process. But other than that, and a big fury in my town, but I got away with it. And I've never told anybody. And, well, it rests heavy on my heart. But I did it. And now I've told you I've done it. Now, I mentioned this is a series, and I'm calling it 12 Murders because that's how many there were. And the second one, a woman, I'll tell you a little about her, but I'll save the story for later. She came in my shop, and from talking to her, my God, she was beautiful and young. Oh, God. She was transient, yet a salesman for a company. Lived in a motorhome in another town, so she was kind of up here in Globe, and no one would have missed her. And we hit it off, and anyway, she stayed for a few days, and well, we'll just leave it with that, but I'll call her number 2. With that, I'm Good Junk Sam, and I don't have my badge on yet. It's a little early. I love talking to the camera in this early morning light. And Ted is somewhere I don't know, and Ted talks. Although he's a petroleum-based made in China artifact, you never know if he's going to talk about this or not. So I left him in another room. So anyway, I'll talk to you later with more stories. 12 murders. Huh. I feel 112 unburdened already. Bye. Well, there's nothing like the present to tell you the story of Kathy. Now, Kathy is number 2. I started in a story of 12 murders, and I don't know if there's going to be that many yet. We'll let you decide after you hear the story of Kathy. Kathy walked in my junk store. Oh, God. 5 foot nothing, 100 pounds, 105, rock hard body, California look, Dorothy Hamill haircut. She was up here. She was going to Hawaii. She was a Hawaiian. She really had that howly color, and she lived in Apache Junction in a travel trailer. And she told me she'd be traveling around the state selling casual insurance, supplemental. Man, I fell in love. She was here for a couple of days, and then she went to Hawaii, and we started getting together every weekend. She'd come up here, and then we'd travel, and I'd go to there, and we'd travel, and man, to be in love. It's been a long time since, but that's another story. Anyway, she was driving up one day from Superior to Globe. There's a tunnel in it, and they just fixed it. It's really nice, lit nice, and there's passing lanes and all sorts of stuff between Superior and Globe getting up to the top of the hill there. And she drove a Fiat Pininfarina designed car. She loved it, red, of course, convertible, 70s, and it couldn't get out of its own way. But God, she drove all over the state. Well, she was just coming out of the tunnel and coming up to Globe when this trucker, falling asleep at the wheel, crossed over and ran over her. Now, he was a grandfather, and he had a wife, and he had children and grandchildren, and a lot was lost, and it's sad. But he hit her, and if you've ever seen that bridge, you hit it, and it went over the cliff, and there wasn't enough of her car, let alone her, to bury. I didn't tell you, she was 6 months pregnant, and God, it looked like half of a log watermelon on her. It's like, oh. Anyway, so I got through burying her, and we had a coffin for her, and a baby coffin for baby, because that's what we called it. We chose not to see until it came out and blessed us. Put baby coffin inside mama coffin, put mama coffin in the ground. Life goes on. Anyway, about a year, and I struggled with this, but about a year later, God, I was in a bar, buddy of mine's having a party and a drink, and inside this bar, oh God, was this girl. She was meaty and loud and wanted to get drunk. Anyway, the bad side is she was also called Kathy. She was on a layover because she was a trucker. Well, that's the next story. Oh, Lord Almighty, I'm Good Junk Sam. This is the story of 12 murders, except at least one of them wasn't a murder. It was a death that tore the soul out of my heart. And the things I've done since have... there is no redemption. Anyway, peace. Wow. Well, I'm Good Junk Sam, and Lord Almighty, I need to finish this up at least. Tell you the story of Kathy number 2. And I thought there was no better way to do it than, but I got to put on my makeup, so that's what we're gonna do. And now Kathy, gosh, she was beautiful. First thing I like to do for my makeup is astringent, because I'm using a water base, and it's a child's makeup, but then I think most that's advertised is a child's makeup. Kathy number 2, we had a great time. Oh, Lord Almighty. She was wonderful, and she just all night long. It was almost shameful. Oh, I had to drug her to finally put her out. She just wore me out. What I did is put my cap on, and that's another. Is I drug her, and then I hung her because she was already naked, and I hung her, and I had there's these straps that are like leather on the outside, you know, suede, and then cotton, it looks like, or a wool on the inside, so it was really nice for her. If you can imagine being hung out like you're sitting on a stool and hung up to die. Let me put a little water. I guess I could do that with the other sponge. Put a little water in my white. I'm going to do a little white face, or try water-based. So it doesn't take much. And we'll just see how we can do this. It's supposed to go on and you dab. Anyway, so I had her hung. You're going to need more than that. And before she woke up, one thing I figured to do, and I've learned, is I drugged her with marijuana, you know, that 35% stuff. And about every 15 minutes to start. So but when she woke up, she was higher than a kite. So she didn't mind so much, although a little bit. And I kept her drugged the whole time. And I did have her on a seat, so she was at least comfortable. And I told her the story of, this makeup isn't real good, is it? I told her the story of why she was chosen. And I don't know if it made it any better, but, and you know, she went through about, gosh, we don't want that red, I'll live and learn. But she hung there, she hung out, and I made it not too bad for her, as much as you can knowing you're going to die, and of course you got to do it in winter. It doesn't work when it's too hot, because things stink, and I cleaned her up nice. I wonder if I'm not using, this is the first time using this makeup, so you're watching it as I'm learning it. But she hung there, and oh gosh, other than she used about 70 milligrams of 30 proof marijuana oil. So she was pretty placid, and I kept her clean, and I read to her, and I told her stories, and can't say I like this makeup. And it took about 6 days to die, which is kind of bad. Now, one thing I did, you think, how did I dispose of the body? If you remember stories before, a friend of mine in a bar, we were drinking, and he was telling me stories of what he feared the most, which was being in a small hole upside down with his arms down in about this much water. And I think he added ants, so I didn't add ants, but so while she was dying and pretty drugged and comfortable, if you can be comfortable while dying, dehydrating, not eating, with music playing all the time, trying to sedate her, because, you know, even with duct tape, people are a little noisy. And she was meaty. Oh, she was beautiful, big boobs. How I ever got away with hauling her out of the bar, and not being noticed, because, you know, people sooner or later wondered where she was. But that's okay. It happened in life, and I'm here to tell a story. Even if I can't put on makeup. It was hard. you know, it's never easy. And I grew really attached to her, and you think, well, okay, you had mad, passionate sex all night long with her, consensual. Did you have sex with her while she's hung up and her legs are spread and her arms are out? I'm thinking, ew. Oh, God, consensual sex is one thing. That's just taking advantage of a situation. I may be a murderer and a butcherer of people, but I am not a sex fiend. I am not a rapist. One thing I did do, and I don't know if I'm too close to the camera for you to see, but because she had these large breasts, after she died, I cut around the breasts a little wider so I could take them off, and I cleaned them out like gutting them. And she was an Eastern European like me, so her skin, even though lighter because it wasn't tanned, I called taupe. Now, taupe is the color of Caucasian stretched skin over a lampshade. And what I did is I stretched and dried and cured her breasts, the skin, and I made lampshades, and they were really ski slope type, and they were sconces is what you call them. And so I'm kind of a social guy, and at parties they're on the wall, and I thought it'd be real fun to have milk come out of them because people are going, oh, isn't that, God, those look real, and you know, but I didn't do that. I just had these beautiful breasts to remember her by. And I put her in the hole, one upside down, and you don't really stomp them. The hardest thing was getting her down the stairs because I had her upstairs where my bedroom is, in the above the root cellar, not root cellar, because she was a large girl, bigger than me, but and oh, she was fun. And so dragging her downstairs and putting her in the hole, it was just that simple. And I covered the hole with this heavy wire mesh because when she decomposes, you can't tamp down a hole hard enough with a, 160, 180 pound body inside will decompose and the ground will fall in. So I put this heavy mesh that's, not unlike these things here, if you can see my milk crates. And then I put rebar on top and I poured concrete, and it was as good as gone. And, I still wonder how I got away with it because, you drag a woman out of the bar and you bring her home and you have screaming maniacal sex all night long. Somebody notices. Maybe not the screaming maniacal sex, but the dragging out of the bar, or, hey baby, 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 ooh, ooh. I can't express how hard it is. I need better makeup. These just don't work. I'm glad I only bought 4 of these little things. I'll have to try my other. I have some that's a little more expensive, and we'll see if it works. But one thing I noticed is this is called 12 Murders, and it's all I can do to sit down here and tell you number 3, Kathy, because it doesn't heal me, if that makes any sense. And quite frankly, I don't want to tell you any more stories. Well, I better figure out how to put on makeup. I've got showtime in an hour. So peace. Mahalo.